I'm going to do this demonstration using the spring tree pattern. I'm going to jump straight to the pattern. It's split over 4 pages with the duplicated part of the pattern highlighted in pink, and I've also put in a centre picture to make working from the centre out easier, and it's the same for the pattern, the fill pattern side. So it's got 4 pages plus the centre. So I'm going to jump straight into how I would start doing the stitching. First of all, I'd find the centre, and how I would do that is fold my fabric into 4 and basically stick a needle in the corner like that, and then when I open it up I have my centre marked. I would then I stretch it onto a frame, which I usually use a wooden frame like this, and fix it with silk pins so they don't damage the fabric. Once I've stretched it and I've got the centre, I use my needle just to make a slightly bigger hole so I don't lose it. Then using the pattern, each square on the pattern represents 1 square on the fabric. So I count from the centre to the first line. So if I go across, it'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I take my needle. To thread it, I double my thread, so I've got a loop one end and it open at the other end. This is the cheats way of starting. Then I thread my needle at the open end, and I count on my fabric from the underneath, from the centre, 5 across. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now this, as it's the cheats way of starting, I bring the needle up from the back and then put it down through to the back again and turn over, and I put the needle through the loop, so when I pull it, it's locked on, and then I can follow the pattern. So I've got 2 straight stitches. Now it's your choice whether you decide to do 2 single stitches or go over two squares to make it a double stitch. Then, as we've got a diagonal, the easiest way I've found to do this is if you mark on the pattern where the start of the diagonal starts and where it crosses the next square, so I would say it's there, that will be the size of my stitch. So I'll count 1 out, 1 across, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 squares up, and then I make that stitch. So I count from the back, poking my needle through because it helps me see where I'm going. So I've got 1 across and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 up. Then I make the stitch like that, and then I carry on. What I do sometimes is, if you're doing back stitch, your next stitch, which would come out again 1, and we go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, because that's where it crosses. If you're doing a straight running stitch, you would come out 1 and go up 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then pull the needle through and do your stitch like that. On a sharper curve, instead of coming back on yourself like a running stitch, I would come up where the stitch ends like that, and then do your next stitch. And what it does on the back, it makes a smoother curve, so you don't have diagonal lines cutting across your empty fabric when you've finished your tree. So if I do my next stitch, I've got one that's covering this time. It's coming out 1, 2, because I'm going up to this one here, and it goes up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I'm going out 2. This time you count from the top. 1, 2, and you go up 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And you continue like that to do the outline. So having stitched part of the outline, I probably would do a slightly bigger area. I would then move on to doing the fill stitch. Now my recommendation is to start with the darker stitches first, but as they don't overlap, it doesn't actually matter which colour you do first. I'm picking to do this area here, as this is the curve that I've done. So I've done these 2 straight black stitches, so I'm going to put this diagonal line in. Again, it should follow one square of the pattern is 1 square of the fabric. The fabric I'm using is Hardanger, which is 22 count Aida. And it's just a case of follow the pattern to create the fill. You can either choose to do 1 stitch per square, which is what I'm doing on this because it is bigger than the even weave. So that's what I've done for this leaf. Or get the stitch in. You can choose to do. You can choose to go over 2 squares if the stitch allows. So that's a single. This diagonal is a single. But the next stitch that goes straight up goes over 2 squares. So you can make that, if you want to, 1 stitch. But I wouldn't make the stitches any bigger. Like that. But that is down to how you want to do it. And then it's a case of just follow the pattern. It will still look fine because of the size with a single strand, which is how the pattern is designed. And it's a case of carry on. The flower is done, the outline of the flower is done in a double strand like you do the black, and the fill pattern of the tree is done in a single strand, the same as the centre of the flower. But it will look just as good on hardanger than it would on the even weave. I hope this video is a bit of a help. If you need any more advice, get in touch.